Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. It's some very interesting market action in the precious metals today, specifically in silver and also in US Treasuries, the US dollar index, and stocks. And the way that all of those assets traded together, I think, may be giving us some clues as to where gold and silver may go in the future. Also, we had some fairly ominous developments over in Russia and Ukraine with Vladimir Putin giving a speech where he officially annexed some of those eastern Ukrainian provinces. And that speech was full of inflammatory and escalatory rhetoric. And we're going to cover all of that and what that means for markets moving forward in today's video. But first, I do have a quick announcement about the channel, and that is that I have partnered up with SD Bullion to be the exclusive bullion dealer sponsor of this channel. And I think this is really going to be a win-win for everybody involved moving forward, as their sponsorship will allow me to spend more time and resources on these videos and bringing all of you the type of content that you like to see and keeping you up to date on what's going on in the world and in the precious metals markets. And also, I've been shopping with them for years, and frequently people will ask me on the channel, hey, what's a good place to go buy gold and silver? And I've been sending people to SD Bullion for years because as far as bullion dealers go, I shop with them just about more than anybody else. And I've always had a great experience, and they have very competitive pricing, good shipping times, good selection. So, to me, it's a no-brainer to partner up with them and have them become the official channel sponsor. So I'm very excited about what that means for things to come. And, if you're looking for some gold and silver, don't forget to go check out the link to ST Bullion down in the description below. Now, getting to what happened in gold and silver today. A very notable thing, silver was up, gold was just about flat on the day, but that happened against a backdrop of US stocks falling and also US Treasuries selling off, so the yield on the 10-year bond moving back up, and the US dollar index was just about flat today. Now, why does that matter? Well, in the sell-off across assets that we've been witnessing over the past couple weeks, on these big down days when everything sells off, what we usually have been seeing is that stocks fall, gold and silver fall, the US dollar index strengthens, and US Treasuries sell off. Now, we did get the Treasuries selling off, and we did get stocks falling, but the fact that gold and silver showed some strength in the face of that, silver even putting on a decent gain, it was up about 1.5%, I think is very notable, especially when you consider the fact that the US dollar index was flat, but metals were still putting on a gain. And I suspect that this may have something to do with the Bank of England and their announcement of a return to quantitative easing. I suspect investors here may be getting an idea of what the end game for this whole fiat debt-based currency experiment is, and they are starting to understand that gold and silver are going to be one of the few safe havens to survive the coming debt market crisis and the coming economic collapse that we are all likely to be living through in the very near future. Now, of course, it was just 1 day of trading activity, so I do want to be cautious about extrapolating too much from that. I'm kind of wishing I had picked up some physical metal on this recent dip, but I still suspect that there is some room for some pain. And, I don't have a huge overweight cash position or anything. I mean, if anything, I'm overweight the physical metals, so it will take a considerable drop for me to make a purchase at this point. And, one of the things that we saw was silver touched down to just about 18 bucks. But I don't think anywhere there was any silver for sale under $20 an ounce. At least I didn't see any. And so, even though the paper price of metals was correcting and was down, physical metals have proven to be fairly resilient with, when the paper price goes down, we see the premiums go up. And basically what that represents, it's not, greedy bullion dealers trying to rip everybody off, I don't think. It is just that the price of physical metal is not entirely correlated any longer to the paper price. One thing I did pick up a couple days ago was some more mining stocks, and I'm pretty glad I did that because they put on some pretty good gains during the past two trading sessions, and I think that that's going to be a trend that we see moving forward. Now, things like mining stocks, those are a lot more speculative than physical metal like this, and, none of this is financial advice, of course. I'm just kind of giving you my thoughts on things, but physical metal, I view that more as like a long-term savings account. I have no plans to sell any physical metal. I don't have like a dollar price target or anything. I think it's more important to measure your wealth in physical metals simply in ounces rather than in dollar terms. But those miners, you're basically buying gold and silver that is in the ground at a huge discount. There's a lot more risk there as well. Of course, you've got the management teams and business factors, lots of things outside of the price of gold and silver that affect the miners. But for anybody out there who's looking to do some speculative purchases, I think the miners still are incredibly cheap at today's prices, and there's a tremendous amount of potential for appreciation there. Now, in other news, we had that speech from Vladimir Putin officially annexing those four eastern Ukrainian provinces. That's Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia. In that speech, it was pretty escalatory. He basically said that, the West was responsible for the recent sabotages of the Nord Stream pipelines. He also mentioned that the US has set the precedent for the use of nuclear weapons because we used them back at the end of World War II. And the implications there are that now that these eastern Ukrainian provinces are officially Russian soil, that, there might be some nuclear weapons used to defend them should the Ukrainians try to invade and recapture that territory. So this puts us into a pretty sticky situation because you've got these provinces that Russia considers to be part of Russia. Ukraine considers them to be part of Ukraine, and eventually we might see, direct conflict over this territory, and that opens the door to all sorts of problems. If we get a nuclear weapon going off in Ukraine, and the Russians have them, and the Russians actually have a lot more tactical nuclear weapons than we do. We've got the Minuteman missiles, and we've got the ballistic missile submarines out there, and I guess we've got some nuclear bombers as well. But in terms of tactical nuclear weapons, the Russians really have a much more diverse arsenal at their disposal. And I don't think that they're going to hesitate to use those if they think it is somehow in their best interest. Now, maybe that'll be a miscalculation. Maybe it'll lead to some god-awful nuclear World War III. But, the use of strategic nuclear weapons is not guaranteed if they lob off a tactical nuke. Now, it almost certainly would be a massive escalation over there. And the real important thing here, I'm not a geopolitical channel really, although the world of geopolitics certainly affects precious metals. But the thing to realize here is that if a tactical nuclear weapon goes up, regardless of what the outcome is militarily, markets are going to tank in a giant way. I mean, it'll probably be the worst financial event that any of us have witnessed in our lifetimes. And possibly it could be the worst economic crisis in history. I mean, you look at all of the debt in the system, how wobbly the system already is, how shaky things are with all these sanctions harming Western economies, and the debt levels that we see around the world among corporations and governments and individuals. There's just a lot of fragility in the system right now, and something like a tactical nuclear weapon going off, I mean, it's going to bring the whole thing down around us. It's going to implode the whole house of cards, so to speak. And should something like that happen, precious metals really are one of the few assets that will act as a safe haven because they're one of the few assets that doesn't have any kind of counterparty risk. You don't have to rely on a government or a bank or anybody for that matter to fulfill a promise for something like this 5-ounce Aztec round to have value. No, it has value because it took a lot of energy to get it out of the ground. It has a lot of utility in a number of industrial ways. Silver has a history as a monetary metal as well, so it's a recognized store of value. And this is the sort of asset that will get you through something like a war sell-off. Now, as far as what the ultimate outcome of this war in the East is going to be, it's anybody's guess at this point. I think that ultimately we'd all be better served if there was peace and cooperation among nations rather than warfare, but that's not the world that we live in. So, prepare yourself accordingly. And if you've got some extra cash, it's not financial advice, of course, but if you don't have a position in physical metals, the prices are still pretty appealing, even though they have gone up somewhat today and over the past couple trading sessions. I still think silver is just absolutely tremendously undervalued. And, these small day-to-day price movements in silver, unless you're a speculator, unless you're trading, really, they're just kind of noise. Some days silver's cheaper, some days silver's more expensive, but at the end of the day, you want to measure your wealth in ounces, not in dollars, and so it's never a bad time to convert some fiat into metal. So you might want to consider getting some physical metal, especially if you're just in paper assets. Like I always say, I don't give financial advice, but I think I can give a financial warning, and that is that to be exclusively in paper assets, to the exclusion of any kind of physical hard money assets, I think is a mistake at this point, and we all just need to be doing our best to get prepared. Let me know what you think about today's developments down in the comments below. Do you think that gold and silver are going to kind of uncouple from stocks? Are they going to move up even on these days when we see stocks selling off? They're going to decouple from the US dollar. Maybe we can see a dollar rising or falling either way, and silver and gold still managing to move up as investors wise up and they realize just how precarious the situation that we find ourselves in is. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker, out.